All right, guys, tonight we have the 5060. We're on Wukong at 1080p. I'd like to ask everyone to please like and subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, so we are on low settings. We are on DLSS, but we have it at native resolution, native scaling. So it's at 100%, so there's no upscaling whatsoever, and this is the lowest setting at 1080p. All right, so we've got about 8 gig. Well, we have 8 gigs to work with, not about. We have 8 gigs to work with on our VRAM. And right now we are at 5.8. So this is the cheapest 50 series card you can get. It gives you access to multi-frame generation as well as upscaling technology. So I wanted to take some time and just run through this card at its price point. A lot of people might be considering it, and we're just going to see how it performs in a pretty demanding title. Wukong is definitely no slouch when it comes to hardware demands by any means. All right, so we're at 123 FPS here, so let's just jump over to the medium preset, and we're going to keep going through here, and not going to mess with this. There's a bug that puts this in Chinese. I know what it says because I have Google Translate, and I translated it, so I'll be able to know what we're doing. All right, so at medium settings, again, this is no upscaling. We're at 88 FPS. Now, this is no ray tracing either. Ray tracing is really going to crash this game out pretty bad, so just be prepared. But we're just going to see what DLSS can do to maybe save the day. Again, this is at 1080p, so we might be okay. So we're at medium settings here. Again, native, no upscaling, no frame gen, and no ray tracing. So at 98 FPS, definitely playable, really good experience. All right, so let's just come over here and up this graphics setting a little bit, because we have plenty of frames left over to try to get a better looking game for sure. Excuse me. Yeah, so we're 70 FPS. Looking okay though. Once we go up to the cinematic quality setting, it should be okay. It should still hover around 60, hopefully. At least that's what I'm wishing for. All right, so at 80 FPS here, and looks like we're at 6.4 gigs of allocated VRAM. So we're looking okay. The VRAM S, that third one down, that is the spilled or shared VRAM. You want to see that just kind of locked around 447, not moving a lot. It's going to move around whenever we change settings, but once we're on a particular setting, you want that to just stay put. That tells me that there's no spillover and that the system is using the VRAM on the card efficiently. So that's good to see. All right, so let's just keep going here and jump down to the next setting, which would be the very high setting. So we might not make it to cinematic at 60. Yeah, we're at 56 here on very high, and you can kind of definitely see the under 60 on a game like this for sure. It's especially whenever you're seeing these very high frame rates, and then you make a setting like very high, and then it drops it down to a sub 60. So right here is kind of where the game starts to need some help, but we're just going to keep on going to cinematic and see where we're at there, and then try to get some frames, get the frame rate up a good bit, and use frame generation and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so we're at 36 FPS here. Again, this is before ray tracing, so I'm kind of nervous to even try ray tracing at this high of a setting, because we're at 7.1 gigs of allocated VRAM, and I know two things are true. Ray tracing will utilize VRAM for sure, and frame generation will definitely utilize VRAM. So really, you want to find a setting that gives you enough VRAM left over to frame generate, so that you can have a smooth experience without going over that very small 8 gigabyte VRAM buffer. Again, this is just at 1080p. So you've probably seen my other videos by now where I do not recommend getting an 8 gigabyte card. I still kind of don't, but budget limitations are a thing for many people. And if you're able to make some concessions and just kind of know what you're purchasing, I think you can probably get this card and set your expectations accordingly. and have a good experience. So right here we're at 42 FPS. We're just kind of running around this area. I like this area because it's more calm. I can test well in it. It's got water. It's got enclosed spaces. It's got open spaces. So yeah, it's a pretty good area in my opinion to test in. All right, so let's just keep going. So right now we are at cinematic settings and we're at 1080p. So let's go over to DLSS and drop this down to a quality setting. All right, so we're going to go with 67. That would be a quality setting. All right, so that gives you 44, 43 FPS, noticeably smoother, but still not quite 60. You could just frame generate from here, and I think you'd have a pretty good experience. But we're just going to test all the settings. Definitely use the chapter markers, and the black box at the top will tell you kind of the main settings. You can skim through and get where you want to get to according to what your play style is. All right, so yeah, let's just keep going here. We've got 50 FPS, and for the most part, whenever we come down here and go to a performance quality setting, right here is kind of where the game always wants you to go to. That's just the fact of the matter. But whenever you do go to that, it does give you a little bit of VRAM back, and you might be able to frame generate a little bit with that VRAM to get a good experience. However, you are at 60 FPS right here with slight dips below it. So frame generating, you're not at a stable 60, even with the performance DLSS. So what I would probably recommend doing is knocking this game down to that break point that we had. And that break point was, it went from high to very high. That's when it kind of broke a little bit. So I would go with high. So let's test high, and let's test quality. So high with quality DLSS, and let's just see what that gives us. All right, so that gives us 93 FPS, yeah. And we've got 6.6 gigs on our allocated VRAM. So we've got plenty to frame generate from this because whenever we try to introduce ray tracing, it will give us a significant performance hit. I'm not sure if we're even going to be able to get ray tracing to work on this title without significantly dropping the native resolution with DLSS. So we're going to have to upscale the hell out of this thing to get ray tracing to run and look good and have a nice stable frame rate. So yeah, this will probably be a little bit longer test than normal because I really want to explore what all that looks like at 1080 just to see if this is still a viable card or if you should jump up to the 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte, because VRAM is the story of these cards this year for sure. All right, so at that setting, that high setting, that's kind of where we're going to stick around at. Let's go to performance at high and see where we're at. Okay, so that gives us 106 and still about 6.5 gigs of allocated VRAM with no spill, really. I mean, that 455 megabytes is just staying locked, so that tells me that we're not spilling. It will never say 0, so don't get that confused. It does have to communicate with the system RAM to some degree. You just don't want it to start going up or jumping around like crazy, because that tells me it's doing more than just what it needs to do, and it's actually using system RAM in place of video RAM or VRAM. All right, so let's just go with another setting here. I just want to see what ray tracing will do. Now it will probably, yeah, it's going to ask me to restart. I'm going to restart. Not going to change anything. I'm just going to leave it on high. We're going to leave it on DLSS with a 50% upscale, which is, again, a performance upscale, and just turn ray tracing on low. All right, so I'll see you after I restart. All right, we have restarted. I just wanted to jump in here and show you what I mean. So we're still at 1080p. So we're still at 1080p right there. All right, so 50% upscale, this means off. So DLSS is on, it's just a 50% upscale, no frame generation. Ray tracing is on low, everything is set to the high preset. All right, so let's jump in and see where we're at. we are at 94, 95 FPS, so we're still doing pretty well. Everything looks like it's gonna be a nice, solid experience as far as like, you know, making sure we're not going over that VRAM. I don't think frame generation is going to be possible just because it's going to need VRAM that we really don't have. We're sitting right at a gig under our hardware limit of 8, so we're at 7. And just knowing what I know, we're probably going to have to do a little bit of hardcore upscaling to get ray tracing to work. But ray tracing low, 80 FPS, does look okay. Now, I will say performance does start to visually hit this game pretty hard. So I'm going to see what ray tracing low on a performance setting of 67 would look like, kind of how that would play. And let's just see. All right, so we are at 64 FPS. It does look quite a bit better. And we are at 64, 65 FPS here. So this is a playable experience. You're at 60 plus FPS, right at it at least. You do have a little bit of ray tracing in there. You're not probably going to be able to go like full maxed out high ray tracing. But your VRAM is under 8. So you're still looking okay as far as your VRAM goes. Again, this is just a game where you're going to have to make a few concessions if you do want to run ray tracing. Everything looks pretty much doable without ray tracing, though, at 1080p. I'm not seeing anything that's going to discourage me from recommending it if that's where you're at. It always does this. It always makes it down to 67 for some reason. All right, so let's go to medium. We're going to leave everything the same. So this is quality DLSS, which definitely looks better than performance, and this is medium ray tracing, and we are at 58 FPS, 59 FPS, definitely playable. Like, just because you're not seeing 60 and you're seeing like 58, 57, you're not going to feel the difference, especially if you're on one of these. If you're on a controller, you're just not going to feel the difference, even down to, maybe 45 FPS, I would say, on a controller would be okay. So just keep that in mind too. You might be okay with a controller. I know on a title like this, I would rather play with a controller. It's just way too complicated for my brain and hand to use a mouse and keyboard on an action title like this. It's just, I would rather have a controller. But anyway, yeah, so we're at 58 FPS. Let's go to the next level of ray tracing. Again, this is quality DLSS. Again, move that up. Okay, so very high is as high as it goes. So this is very high ray tracing, and you are at a quality DLSS setting. So right here, it does kind of start to break down. You're at 43 FPS. Again, we have not introduced any frame generation simply because our VRAM is going to take a massive hit whenever we do that. So at very high ray tracing, again, this is just the high preset, you might be able to get away with it at a performance DLSS upscale and have a little bit better time. Again, this is still no frame gen, and that gets you back up to around 60. So it looks like you're going to have to, like if you go up one place, you might have to go down in another. So if you go up on your ray tracing, you're going to have to use a little bit more DLSS, go to that 50%, and that's going to give you a little bit above 65 FPS here. So I really want to just test one more kind of theory of mine here. If you want to go over here, go to go to graphics, sorry. Now, if you just want to see what it looks like with the quality DLSS and go down to a medium. So this is quality DLSS, full ray tracing, medium. So we have gone back up on our super resolution while going down on our preset, but we've kept ray tracing alive at very high. Again, I'm just trying to go through a lot of these situations that you might find yourself kind of fiddling with to get a nice frame rate. We're at 7.2 gigs of allocated VRAM still, so we're okay there. 620 megabytes of shared VRAM, which that's never going to be 0. You just don't want to see it move. So 620, 621, yeah, it looks fine to me. All right, so let's just see what the next thing we can test out would be. All right, so let's go down to, you might have to just make that concession and go down to a 50% super resolution and maybe be able to run medium ray tracing. So medium ray tracing, 50% on your DLSS upscaling, and a medium graphic preset, medium ray tracing. Let's go and apply that and see what that does. All right, very nice frame rate. You definitely don't have to go this hard in the paint on one of these settings. You could possibly do a, drop into the preset there and maybe go up to a very high. Let's see what that does. So that might be something that we could throw on there to get a little bit better visual experience. It's going to yell at us and say this is going to be hard to do, but as you can see, we're still at 70 FPS here. And again, this is a little bit of ray tracing, medium ray tracing, and you've got that. I believe we're on a performance upscale right now. So really, it's just all personal. I mean, it just, yeah. So this is 60. So let's go up to 67. So let's see what that does. So this would just be a quality level upscale, and of course you're gonna give up a little bit of frames to do this. Now at this level, you're right at 60. You could turn on frame generation. I'm not really confident that you're not going to spill over. So let's just see what that does anyway, just to get that kind of out of our head as far as like what it would do. Let's go up to a 2x. Okay, so everything is left alone, still quality, ray tracing medium, graphic preset very high, which does give you a little bit of a visual bump. All right, so that's going to give you 80 FPS, and you're right at 7.3 gigs of allocated VRAM. It looks like it is dumping though. Oh well, maybe not. It looks like it dumped and then kind of gathered itself, and we're still moving around. So it's definitely dumping some VRAM associated tasks to the system RAM. So yeah, we're getting some stutters. It's definitely not having a good time here. So we've kind of hit that limit. I don't think that frame generation is going to be doable just because you're out of VRAM. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. So a 50% upscale, ray tracing on medium seems like it does okay. Let's go with cinematic. So this is cinematic ray tracing medium with a 50% upscale. And we are right at 60, so we're at 7.4 gigs though, and as long as that shared VRAM stays at 627 and doesn't start moving around on us like crazy, this wouldn't be a bad way to play it. Now, you are at a 50% upscale at 1080p, which is quite a low base resolution. All right, sorry, I just had a weird pop-up from an AMD scheduler. But anyway, all right, so 69, 66 FPS. Now let's go up to quality because we have essentially tested out everything. Let's go to a quality upscale and let's see what that does. So that's at 45 FPS. I mean, you could play it like this as long as you don't, because there is some shimmering at performance. So, as long as you don't mind getting under 60, which I don't think on this game is that huge of a deal, still plays fine, still feels good. You could have like a nice solid visual experience with a very playable game. Again, this game has so many settings that it's just like entirely personal. So if you wanted to get that over 60, you could also come in here and jump down into this and go back to a very high setting. Again, this is medium ray tracing, and that gives you a little bit better experience. You're at 47, 48. I don't think that ray tracing is going to be something that is going to be doable without making a lot of concessions. And on this particular game, ray tracing isn't exactly like the end all be all of visual fidelity. It's not like that jump from non-ray tracing to ray traced Cyberpunk by any means. So I would just skip it. I would just leave ray tracing off and play with just a slightly elevated visual experience on a quality DLSS setting. I think that would be a pretty good combination there. So just to kind of simulate that here, we would go down here. I'm going to leave ray tracing on low because on low it really doesn't affect much at all. And then I would come down here and just run a high. So high, low ray tracing with a quality upscale, and you're at 65 FPS. Again, you know, this is probably how I would recommend playing it. Your VRAM's under control. You've got an over 60 FPS experience. And sorry about my phone that keeps going off. I need to silence it. But yeah, everything's good here. I mean, this is how I would probably play it. I would just keep my ray tracing on low. That way you're not killing your VRAM. I would use my super resolution at 67. Frame generation would be off because we just don't have the VRAM for it. So this is off. I looked it up on Google Translate. All right, and the ray tracing is on low and the graphics preset is on high. So this is how I'd play it. So if you like this kind of content, please jump in the comments, give me a like, you know, I'll answer any questions you got, and subscribe, please. That is the best way to support what I'm doing here, and we will see you in the very next one. Peace.